Queen Camilla slapped a royal guard. Seconds later, the king rose from his seat. The morning at Buckingham Palace was filled with an unusual sense of excitement and tension. The sky above was clear, the sun shining brightly on the grand facade of the palace, and the crowd that had gathered outside was buzzing with anticipation. Families, tourists, and reporters from across the country had come to witness an event that was expected to be both elegant and historic. Flags fluttered in the gentle breeze, and the meticulous arrangements of the palace grounds reflected centuries of tradition. Every detail mattered, from the polished marble floors to the perfectly aligned guards standing at attention. The palace itself seemed alive with history, its towering walls whispering stories of kings, queens, and moments that had shaped a nation. Inside, the atmosphere was equally charged, but in a more controlled way. Staff moved quickly yet quietly, their footsteps muffled against the thick carpets, as they ensured everything was in perfect order. The air carried a mixture of scents: the faint fragrance of fresh flowers carefully placed in vases, the clean, polished wood of the furniture, and the subtle perfume worn by members of the royal family. Every element was chosen to convey elegance, grace, and the weight of responsibility that came with being part of the monarchy. Among all of this, Queen Camilla prepared herself with careful attention. She dressed in a tailored outfit that reflected both sophistication and authority, her jewelry understated but elegant. Her hair was perfectly styled, and her posture reflected the discipline and awareness expected of someone of her position. Even in private moments, there was a sense that she was always aware of being observed, her every action watched by a world that held her to an almost impossible standard. King Charles, seated nearby, observed the preparations quietly. His presence was calm and steady, a contrast to the subtle flurry of activity around him. He had long been accustomed to these public events, understanding the importance of every gesture, every glance, and every word spoken. Yet beneath his composed exterior was the knowledge that even the smallest lapse could draw scrutiny. His eyes moved deliberately over the room, noting the arrangement of the guards, the positioning of staff, and the expressions on the faces of those around him. He understood that his role was not only to participate in the event, but to guide it, to ensure that the centuries-old traditions of the monarchy were upheld without incident. This calm observation, paired with an awareness of the immense history behind every ceremonial detail, gave him a sense of quiet authority that was both reassuring and commanding. The royal guards, standing at attention, were statuesque in their uniforms, polished boots reflecting the light streaming through the palace windows. Each guard was acutely aware of their duty, trained to respond instantly to any situation, and mindful that even the smallest mistake could have consequences. They moved with precision, a silent choreography that spoke of years of rigorous training. Yet even in this disciplined environment, tension was present. There was always a quiet pressure, a sense that the eyes of the world were upon them. Each step, each turn of the head was measured, controlled, and deliberate. The guards were not just symbols of protection. They were living embodiments of the traditions and expectations that had been passed down through generations of service to the crown. Outside the palace, the crowd's energy mirrored the intensity within. People whispered to one another, exchanged excited glances, and raised cameras and phones to capture every moment. Some had traveled great distances for a chance to see the Queen and the King in person, while others had come simply to be part of a historic day. The sound of voices blended with the faint rustle of flags and the occasional clip-clop of horses from the royal procession preparing nearby. The excitement was palpable, a mixture of awe, curiosity, and anticipation that made even the most mundane moments feel significant. Children pointed eagerly at the palace windows, their parents holding them up to see over the sea of people, while reporters jostled for position, eager to capture an image or a soundbite that would later fill newspapers and news broadcasts. Back inside, Queen Camilla moved through the grand hallways with poise. Her footsteps were soft, yet each carried a quiet authority, a reminder that she was not just another observer of the event, but a central figure within it. As she approached the area where the ceremony would take place, she glanced briefly at the guards, noting their precise positioning. Her eyes flicked to King Charles, who acknowledged her presence with a subtle nod. This silent communication between them conveyed a depth of understanding developed over years of shared responsibilities, public scrutiny, and the complex dynamics of royal life. It was a relationship built on trust, respect, and an unspoken awareness of the weight of their roles. Each knew when to act, when to observe, and how to maintain the balance between public expectation and personal composure. The palace staff worked around them like clockwork, moving with efficiency and discretion. Flower arrangements were checked for symmetry, chairs were aligned to exact measurements, and ceremonial documents were placed in their designated positions. Every small action contributed to the larger goal, a flawless presentation of tradition, elegance, and authority. The queen paused for a moment near a grand window, looking out at the gathering crowd. Her gaze was steady, her expression controlled, but a flicker of thought passed through her eyes. A reminder that despite the pomp and ceremony, real human presence and emotion existed behind the polished surfaces of royal life. It was in these fleeting moments, when the world was watching but unaware of the inner thoughts of those on display, that the true humanity of the monarchy became visible. The narrative of the day continued to unfold with careful precision. From the perfectly aligned guards to the meticulous attention of the palace staff, every detail spoke of preparation and tradition. Yet beneath the surface, there was an underlying tension, subtle but unmistakable. The royal family, despite their years of experience, were still human. Their responses to unexpected events, their gestures, and their interactions were all influenced by the immense pressure of expectation. Queen Camilla, poised and composed, was acutely aware that any misstep could become a subject of public scrutiny. King Charles, observing with a calm demeanor, understood that his role was not only to participate, but to guide, to maintain order, and to exemplify the dignity and composure expected of a monarch. The story of this day, while seemingly ordinary in its ceremonial precision, was imbued with layers of human complexity, historical weight, and the ever-present awareness of an audience both near and far. As the ceremony was about to begin, the palace seemed to hold its breath. The combination of sunlight, polished floors, and the quiet hum of anticipation created an almost magical atmosphere. Every participant, from the royal family to the guards to the staff, moved with purpose, aware of their place in the intricate choreography of tradition. Queen Camilla straightened her posture one last time, a subtle gesture that reflected both confidence and readiness. King Charles gave a final glance around the room, his calm presence anchoring the unfolding events. Outside, the crowd leaned forward in expectation, sensing that something significant, even historic, was about to occur. The palace, steeped in centuries of history, was alive with preparation, human emotion, and the delicate balance between tradition and spontaneity. And it was in this atmosphere, so meticulously prepared, yet subtly charged with tension, that the story of the day truly began. What appeared to be a perfectly ordinary royal event carried within it the potential for unexpected moments, human reactions, and the brief flashes of personality that could ripple across headlines. Queen Camilla, King Charles, the royal guards, and the attending staff were all poised on the edge of ceremony and reality, where every movement could matter and every glance could be interpreted. The stage was set, the audience was watching, and history waited quietly in the wings. The ceremony had begun, and the grand hall of Buckingham Palace was alive with quiet tension and anticipation. Queen Camilla moved gracefully through the space, her eyes scanning the room as she adjusted her posture with care. Every movement she made was deliberate, measured, and precise, reflecting years of experience in the public eye. Her role demanded perfection, and she carried that responsibility with both elegance and seriousness. Around her, the royal staff and guards performed their duties flawlessly, each aware that any small mistake would not only be noticed, but potentially reported by the media waiting outside the palace walls. In this environment, where tradition and discipline were paramount, even the smallest gesture could have significance far beyond the moment itself. The royal guards, standing at attention like statues, were acutely aware of their surroundings. Their faces were calm, their eyes focused, and their bodies rigid with discipline. Each guard had undergone years of training to maintain this level of precision, learning to anticipate every movement of the royal family and to respond without hesitation. They knew that their role was more than ceremonial. They were the embodiment of security, loyalty, and the history of the monarchy itself. Every step they took, every slight shift in stance, had to be controlled and exact. Despite their calm appearance, the guards were conscious of the immense responsibility on their shoulders. They were not only protecting the queen and king, but also upholding centuries of tradition and protocol. As the ceremony progressed, the queen walked slowly down the hall, her attention divided between the event unfolding and the positioning of those around her. She was aware that thousands of eyes, both inside the palace and beyond, were observing every move she made. Suddenly, one of the royal guards, while adjusting his stance to maintain proper alignment with his colleagues, inadvertently brushed against Queen Camilla's arm. The contact was minor, almost imperceptible, yet in the tense atmosphere of the palace, it was enough to draw her attention. Queen Camilla's reaction was immediate and instinctive. Without a word, she raised her hand and gave the guard a sharp slap on the shoulder. The sound echoed faintly in the grand hall, a surprising interruption to the otherwise controlled environment. For a brief moment, time seemed to slow. The guard froze, his disciplined expression flickering with surprise. Those nearby, including other staff members and members of the royal family, glanced quickly at the queen, unsure how to react. The gesture, though not violent, was unexpected. In a place where every action was usually measured and restrained, it was a sudden and very human display of emotion. The crowd outside, though unaware of the exact moment, could feel a shift in the energy inside the palace. Reporters whispered among themselves, speculating about what might have happened, while photographers aimed their cameras toward the windows, hoping to capture a reaction. The incident, though brief, was charged with meaning. It revealed something rarely seen in public. The queen, usually composed and poised, expressing a spontaneous and unmistakable emotion. While her action might seem impulsive to some, those familiar with the pressures of royal life understood that even minor irritations could trigger strong reactions. The palace environment demanded constant attention, and the combination of expectation, scrutiny, and the weight of tradition could create moments of unexpected intensity. The guard, initially startled, quickly regained his composure. Years of training had prepared him for moments like this, though few had involved a direct gesture from a member of the royal family. He straightened his back, adjusted his stance, and gave a subtle nod to acknowledge the queen's displeasure. His reaction was professional and measured, reflecting both respect for his role and the understanding that any overt response could escalate the situation. The moment passed quickly, but the subtle tension remained in the air, a reminder that even the most disciplined environments could experience unexpected human emotion. Queen Camilla, realizing the attention the incident had drawn, composed herself almost instantly. She straightened her posture, adjusted the folds of her dress, and continued to move through the hall with grace. Her expression returned to its usual calm and dignified appearance, giving no further indication of irritation. Yet the moment lingered in the minds of those who had witnessed it. Staff members exchanged subtle glances, acknowledging the event silently, while the guards continued their duties with renewed focus. Even in the midst of centuries-old tradition, the incident served as a reminder that human reactions could not always be fully controlled. The cameras outside caught glimpses of the event, and social media began to buzz with speculation. Headlines would later frame the incident in various ways, emphasizing the unexpected nature of the queen's action. Yet within the palace, the focus remained on maintaining composure and ensuring that the ceremony continued smoothly. King Charles, seated nearby, observed the situation carefully. His eyes followed the movements of the queen and the guard, noting the subtle shift in atmosphere. He understood that the incident, while minor, required a measured response to prevent further tension. His calm presence served as an anchor, a stabilizing force amidst the brief disruption. The narrative of the moment highlighted the delicate balance between authority and humanity. Queen Camilla, accustomed to years of public life, displayed both her dignity and her capacity for immediate emotional response. The guard, trained in discipline and professionalism, exemplified the ability to respond appropriately under pressure. The interplay between these two individuals, in the context of centuries of royal tradition, created a scene that was both historically significant and deeply human. Observers within the palace understood that such moments were rare, yet revealing, offering insight into the personalities and dynamics that shaped the monarchy behind its carefully curated public image. As the ceremony continued, the Queen moved past the area of the incident, her attention refocusing on the unfolding events. Staff and guards resumed their routines, their movements smooth and practiced, as if nothing had occurred. The palace itself seemed to absorb the brief tension, returning to its customary rhythm of elegance and order. Yet for those who had witnessed the moment, it would remain a vivid memory, a reminder that even within the rigid structure of royal protocol, human reactions could surface unexpectedly. The story of the incident was soon carried beyond the palace walls. Journalists, eager for a narrative that combined tradition with drama, speculated about the reasons behind the Queen's gesture. Commentators debated whether it was a simple reflex, a reaction to stress, or a momentary assertion of authority. Social media amplified every angle, with images of the Queen, the Guard, and the surrounding scene circulating widely. While some responses were critical, many viewers expressed understanding, recognizing that even royals, under intense scrutiny and pressure, were human. The incident, though minor in its immediate impact, became a lens through which the public could glimpse the real personalities behind the ceremonial roles. Within the palace, King Charles's response was deliberate yet understated. He rose from his seat, moving toward the guard with calm authority. His expression was measured, his gestures controlled, and his presence immediately reassured those nearby. By addressing the situation in a composed manner, he reinforced the stability and dignity of the monarchy, demonstrating leadership without public reprimand or escalation. The Queen, observing her husband's response, maintained her composed posture, acknowledging the subtle restoration of order while continuing to fulfill her ceremonial role. The moment underscored the complementary nature of their partnership. Her decisive action, his measured response, and the shared understanding of responsibility that bound their public and private lives together. The palace staff and guards continued their duties, aware that the ceremony could not be interrupted further. Every movement, from the folding of programs to the adjustment of ceremonial attire, was performed with precision. The tension from the incident gradually dissipated, replaced by the familiar rhythm of tradition and expectation. Yet the memory of the Queen's sharp gesture lingered in subtle ways, in the careful glances exchanged between guards, in the heightened attentiveness of staff, and in the quiet acknowledgement that even the most composed individuals could experience moments of spontaneous emotion. As the ceremony progressed, the focus shifted back to the grandeur of the event itself. The Queen's poise, the King's calm authority, and the disciplined presence of the guards created a tableau that reflected centuries of royal tradition. Yet beneath the surface, the human elements, surprise, emotion, quick reflexes, and subtle corrections, remained visible to those who paid close attention. The incident with the guard, brief as it was, became an integral part of the narrative of the day, illustrating the interplay between protocol and personal reaction, between expectation and human nature. The story of the Queen and the royal guard was not just about a momentary gesture. It was about the environment in which such moments could occur. Buckingham Palace, with its centuries of history, strict protocols, and constant public attention, was a place where every action carried weight. The presence of the crowd, the scrutiny of the media, and the meticulous attention of the staff created a unique pressure cooker environment. Within this context, the Queen's reaction, the guard's professionalism, and the King's calm intervention all highlighted the complexity of human behavior in settings defined by tradition and expectation. By the end of the ceremony, order had been fully restored. The Queen continued her duties with grace, the guards resumed their disciplined stances, and King Charles returned to his seat, signaling that the event would proceed without further disruption. The brief incident, though already making waves in headlines, had been contained, handled with both human understanding and the elegance expected of royalty. Yet for those who had been present, the moment remained vivid, a reminder that even in the most controlled environments, human emotions and reactions could surface, creating scenes that were as revealing as they were unexpected, seconds after the sharp slap echoed across the Grand Hall. A subtle but noticeable shift occurred in the atmosphere. Queen Camilla, having reacted instinctively to the minor contact from the guard, had regained her composure, her posture once again composed and elegant. But the echo of the moment still lingered in the eyes of those present, the royal guards, the staff, and even the attending dignitaries. In a setting where every movement was scrutinized, a single gesture could become a moment of history. It was at this precise moment that King Charles decided to act, not with anger, not with haste, but with a calm and measured authority that reflected decades of experience in navigating both ceremonial and human complexities. King Charles rose from his seat with deliberate grace. Every motion he made was precise and unhurried, his footsteps measured against the polished floors of the palace. As he moved toward the guard, his face maintained a composed expression, a mask of calm authority that conveyed control without intimidation. The subtle rustle of his attire and the faint click of his shoes against the floor punctuated the silence that had fallen over the hall. All eyes were now on him, aware that his reaction would set the tone for what followed. In that brief interval, the king's presence became both a stabilizing force and a lesson in leadership, a living demonstration of how authority could be exercised with dignity and care. The royal guard, still standing at attention, sensed the shift immediately. His initial surprise had been replaced by disciplined focus. Years of training had prepared him for many scenarios, but few involved direct attention from a monarch following an unusual incident. He remained still, his gaze respectful and steady, aware that any sign of panic or defensiveness could worsen the situation. The subtle tension in the room was palpable, yet the guard's professionalism prevented it from escalating further. His every breath, every controlled movement, reflected a deep understanding of the responsibilities he bore and the decorum expected of him. It was a delicate balance, acknowledging the Queen's reaction while remaining responsive to the King's authority. King Charles approached the guard with a quiet confidence that seemed to radiate through the room. His gestures were subtle, almost imperceptible, yet they conveyed clarity and intent. With a nod and a few carefully chosen words, he reassured the guard while simultaneously reinforcing the decorum of the palace. There was no harsh rebuke, no public embarrassment. Instead, his approach combined empathy with authority, recognizing that the incident had been minor yet required acknowledgement. Observers within the palace, including the Queen herself, noticed the gentle but firm tone of the king's intervention. It was a masterclass in leadership under pressure, the ability to address a situation, restore order, and maintain dignity all at once. As the king engaged the guard, a wave of calm seemed to pass through the room. The royal staff resumed their tasks with renewed focus, and the other guards subtly adjusted their stances, reaffirming their discipline. The queen, though composed, observed her husband's actions with quiet interest. There was a silent understanding between them, a recognition that each had a role in maintaining both the ceremony's flow and the image of the monarchy. Her initial reaction had been instinctive, a brief and human moment of irritation. The king's measured response, however, demonstrated the balance between emotion and protocol, teaching in real time the importance of restraint, guidance, and leadership. The story of this moment was not only about immediate reactions, but also about the deeper dynamics of royal responsibility. King Charles's action highlighted a nuanced understanding of human behavior within the pressures of public life. He recognized that the Queen's gesture, while understandable, could have ripple effects if left unchecked. At the same time, he understood the guard's perspective, a trained professional faced with an unexpected and potentially embarrassing moment. By stepping in calmly, the king created a solution that upheld tradition, respected individuals, and maintained the dignity of the institution. It was an illustration of leadership that combined authority with empathy, a rare and powerful demonstration of how royal figures navigate complex interpersonal moments in highly scrutinized environments. Observers, both within the palace and beyond, sensed the weight of the king's intervention. The guards, once statuesque and motionless, seemed to regain a quiet confidence. Staff members, who had been momentarily tense, continued their duties with a sense of reassurance. The Queen, resuming her ceremonial role, projected an image of poise and grace that masked the brief tension of moments before. The palace, with all its centuries of history and tradition, returned to its rhythm, but now with a subtle, almost invisible layer of human insight added to the proceedings. Every individual present, guards, staff, and onlookers alike, understood, consciously or unconsciously, that the king's calm handling of the situation had reinforced not just protocol, but also the humanity embedded within centuries of ceremonial expectation. Outside the palace, the subtle drama unfolding inside was captured in fleeting images and whispered commentary. Photographers had managed to capture snapshots of the moment, which would later make headlines, but the full context, the care, composure, and authority with which King Charles handled the situation, was something only those present could fully appreciate. Social media began to circulate clips and photos, but much of the nuance was lost in translation. While speculation grew among the public, those within the palace understood the quiet lesson being demonstrated. That leadership, particularly in highly visible roles, required a careful balance of empathy, firmness, and restraint. King Charles's response, though almost imperceptible in movement, resonated deeply with those trained to observe protocol and human behavior alike. The incident also revealed the subtle dynamics of the royal partnership. Queen Camilla's sharp, immediate reaction contrasted with King Charles's measured, deliberate response, showcasing complementary approaches to leadership and public presence. The Queen's action, though impulsive, was grounded in years of experience, reflecting her understanding of the importance of order and the quick enforcement of personal boundaries. The King's calm intervention, on the other hand, illustrated patience, empathy, and an understanding that resolving the situation required more than a reactive gesture. Together, their actions demonstrated the balance of assertiveness and diplomacy necessary in maintaining both personal dignity and the authority of the monarchy. As the ceremony continued, King Charles's presence remained a quiet anchor. He moved with composed precision, observing the room, offering subtle guidance where needed, and maintaining the decorum expected of a monarch. The incident with the guard, while brief, became a focal point around which the flow of the ceremony subtly revolved. Observers could see the ripple effects: the guard's renewed attention, the staff's reinforced discipline, and the Queen's restored composure. Every aspect of the palace's function reflected the king's calm influence, illustrating how one measured action could stabilize a complex environment under intense scrutiny. Beyond the immediate response, the moment carried lessons about human behavior in formal settings. It highlighted the delicate interplay between authority and emotion, the importance of quick but thoughtful intervention, and the ways in which leadership could be demonstrated without overt display of power. The king's measured approach ensured that dignity was preserved for all involved, setting a tone of professionalism, respect, and controlled response. For those watching closely, it was a vivid example of how centuries-old traditions could be maintained while still allowing space for human reaction and correction, a testament to the adaptability and resilience of the monarchy in moments of unexpected tension. The narrative also emphasized the enduring professionalism of the royal guard. His ability to regain composure almost immediately after the Queen's unexpected gesture reflected not only training, but also respect for the institution and the individuals involved. He understood that his role required both obedience and awareness, the ability to respond calmly under scrutiny, and the discipline to navigate a moment of public unpredictability. The guard's steady presence, combined with the king's authoritative yet empathetic intervention, restored a sense of balance to the ceremony, ensuring that tradition and order were maintained without humiliation or discord. Throughout the room, staff and attendees were subtly reminded of the human dimension of the monarchy. While every action was guided by tradition, protocol, and public expectation, the king's calm handling of the incident demonstrated that even in the highest levels of society, patience, understanding, and leadership could resolve moments of tension. Observers witnessed the delicate choreography of power and empathy, recognizing that the true authority of a monarch was not simply in command, but in the ability to respond thoughtfully, maintain order, and respect the dignity of those around them. As the event progressed, the story of the incident became intertwined with the broader narrative of the day. The Queen, having regained full composure, continued her ceremonial duties, her poise and grace commanding admiration. The king's steady presence ensured that the ceremony remained uninterrupted, every detail executed with precision and decorum. Guards maintained their disciplined positions, staff continued their tasks with efficiency, and the palace itself seemed to resume its usual rhythm of elegance, tradition, and ceremonial grace. Yet beneath this rhythm lay the deeper story, a vivid display of human behavior, leadership, and the subtle management of unexpected moments in one of the most highly scrutinized environments in the world. In these moments, the palace was more than a building or a stage for ceremony. It was a living environment, filled with history, expectation, and human complexity. The incident with the guard, the queen's instinctive reaction, and the king's measured response became a lesson in authority, empathy, and composure. Observers could see that even within centuries-old traditions, moments of unpredictability required both discipline and humanity. The story illustrated that leadership was not just about following rules, but about understanding people, guiding them with care, and restoring balance when the unexpected occurred. By the end of this pivotal moment, order had been restored. The queen continued her ceremonial path with grace and dignity. The king returned to his seat with quiet authority, and the guard resumed his position with unwavering professionalism. Staff and attendees, reassured by the resolution, carried on with renewed focus. The subtle tension of the incident had passed, leaving behind a clear example of the interplay between human instinct and disciplined authority, a demonstration of how even minor incidents could reveal the strengths, nuances, and humanity of those in positions of high responsibility. The Grand Hall of Buckingham Palace slowly returned to its usual rhythm after the brief but memorable incident involving Queen Camilla and the royal guard. The subtle tension that had filled the room dissipated like morning mist under the rising sun. Guests, staff, and onlookers began to refocus on the ceremony, allowing the grandeur and tradition of the palace to reclaim center stage. Yet for those who had witnessed the events unfold, there was a lingering awareness that the morning had offered a rare glimpse into the human side of royalty. Even in a place steeped in centuries of protocol and decorum, moments of spontaneity and emotion could surface, revealing the personal side of those whose lives were usually governed by public expectation and strict routine. The royal guard, having regained his composure, returned to his precise, disciplined stance. Every motion he made, every shift of weight, every careful adjustment of his uniform demonstrated professionalism, patience, and loyalty. He understood that his role was more than ceremonial. It was a responsibility to protect, to serve, and to uphold the dignity of the monarchy at all times. Yet in that moment, he also embodied the human capacity for grace under pressure. He had been tested not through danger, but through an unexpected and personal interaction with the Queen herself. His ability to respond calmly reflected years of rigorous training, but also the quiet strength required to navigate the unpredictable circumstances of life within a royal household. Queen Camilla, meanwhile, resumed her ceremonial duties with a composed grace that belied the brief tension of the earlier moment. Her posture remained upright, her movements deliberate, and her expression carefully serene. But there was an awareness in her eyes, a subtle acknowledgement of the reality that even those who live under the constant gaze of the public are still human. While her initial reaction had been instinctive, her quick return to composure reflected an understanding of the broader significance of her role. In public life, particularly within a monarchy that is observed by millions, the ability to manage one's emotions with dignity is a skill as crucial as any ceremonial knowledge or historical awareness. King Charles, observing the Queen and the guard, returned to his seat with calm authority. His measured approach earlier had not only addressed the immediate situation, but also set the tone for the rest of the ceremony. By handling the incident with restraint and empathy, he demonstrated that leadership involves more than issuing commands. It requires understanding, subtle guidance, and the capacity to maintain balance in moments of unpredictability. His quiet presence served as an anchor for everyone in the room. Staff, guards, and dignitaries alike took reassurance from his composed demeanor, finding in his actions a model for responding to unexpected situations with clarity and poise. The palace staff moved with renewed confidence, their earlier tension replaced by a sense of order and continuity. Flower arrangements were checked once more, programs aligned, and ceremonial documents positioned with meticulous attention. Each movement, however small, contributed to the seamless flow of the event. In these actions, there was an implicit recognition of the lesson embedded in the morning's episode, that human reactions, no matter how momentary, could ripple through even the most disciplined and controlled environment. Yet discipline, respect, and patience could restore balance, demonstrating that even moments of tension could serve as opportunities for reflection and learning. Outside Buckingham Palace, the day unfolded with a mixture of curiosity, speculation, and excitement. Reporters who had captured glimpses of the incident began to craft their stories, each attempting to interpret the brief interaction between the Queen and the Guard. Social media users shared images and videos, adding commentary and discussion. While the public conversation varied, from criticism to amusement to understanding, those who were present inside the palace knew that the full story was richer and more nuanced than any headline could convey. In reality, the event was a delicate interplay of human emotion, professional discipline, and measured leadership, a moment that highlighted the humanity within centuries of ceremonial expectation. The incident also revealed the delicate and complementary dynamic between Queen Camilla and King Charles. The Queen's swift, instinctive reaction contrasted with the King's calm, deliberate intervention, yet together they exemplified balance in leadership. Her action demonstrated assertiveness, quick judgment, and the natural human capacity for emotion under pressure. His response showcased patience, empathy, and the ability to restore order without diminishing dignity. Together, their actions reflected a partnership in which both immediate action and measured guidance are necessary, each complementing the other to ensure the smooth functioning of public life and ceremony. As the event progressed, the audience, staff, and guards gradually shifted focus back to the traditional proceedings. The Queen moved gracefully through the hall, her poise commanding attention, while the King maintained his composed presence, his eyes alert to the needs of the room. Guards held their positions with renewed precision, and staff continued their work with careful attention to every detail. The palace itself seemed to settle back into its rhythm, its centuries-old walls bearing silent witness to the unfolding narrative. Yet beneath the surface of tradition and ceremony, the story of the morning had left a subtle but lasting impression. The understanding that even the most disciplined environments are not immune to human nature, and that leadership often involves guiding that humanity with care and grace. The royal guards, in particular, demonstrated resilience and professionalism. The guard who had been the focus of the Queen's reaction continued to stand at attention, his expression calm and his posture disciplined. But within that calm was the quiet acknowledgement of having experienced a rare moment, one in which the unexpected human element intersected with protocol. His ability to maintain composure under scrutiny illustrated the qualities required to serve in such a role: discipline, awareness, and the capacity to respond thoughtfully under pressure. The incident, brief though it had been, became a lesson in humility, professionalism, and respect, both for oneself and for those one serves. Meanwhile, Queen Camilla's composed continuation of the ceremony reinforced the notion that leadership and poise are inseparable from human emotion. She had reacted in a way that was instinctive, yet her ability to regain control and maintain dignity demonstrated maturity and self-awareness. Public figures, particularly within royalty, are often expected to embody idealized perfection, but her actions reminded observers that emotional response is natural and human. The capacity to navigate such moments with grace, particularly under the gaze of hundreds of eyes, is what distinguishes experienced leaders from those untested by public scrutiny. Her swift return to composure became a silent lesson in balancing human instinct with public expectation. King Charles's quiet authority throughout the aftermath emphasized the importance of calm leadership. By intervening with empathy and discretion, he had not only addressed the immediate tension, but also provided a framework for the continuation of the ceremony. His presence reassured those around him that even unexpected incidents could be managed with poise, reinforcing confidence and trust among the staff, guards, and dignitaries. Observers, both inside the palace and beyond, could see that leadership in such settings is not about issuing commands alone. It is about guiding, supporting, and managing complex interpersonal dynamics with wisdom and patience. The king's measured response demonstrated that true authority is rooted in understanding, not merely in position or title. The story of the incident and its aftermath extended beyond the palace walls to influence public perception. Social media discussions, news articles, and commentary pieces highlighted different aspects of the event. The Queen's quick reaction, the guards' professionalism, and the king's calm intervention. While interpretations varied, the underlying narrative was one of balance, resilience, and human dignity. The episode became a reminder that even in highly visible and structured environments, human emotions can emerge, and the ability to manage them effectively is a mark of both personal and institutional strength. Audiences began to appreciate not just the ceremonial spectacle, but also the lessons in character, leadership, and human interaction embedded within the event. In the hours following the ceremony, the palace returned to its routine operations. Guards resumed their schedules, staff attended to administrative and ceremonial tasks, and the Queen and King engaged in formal conversations and duties with the composure expected of their positions. Yet the morning's incident remained a point of reflection, quietly shaping the attitudes and interactions of those present. Staff discussed the moment with subtle acknowledgement of its significance, while guards reflected on the professionalism required to handle unexpected challenges. The event became a case study in the delicate interplay between protocol, personal reaction, and measured response, a moment that highlighted the enduring balance between human nature and the expectations of public life. The incident also reinforced the enduring lesson that leadership involves both action and reflection. The Queen's instinctive response demonstrated decisiveness, while the King's measured approach exemplified patience and understanding. Together, these actions showcased how complementary traits can stabilize a situation, guide behavior, and maintain dignity. For observers, the morning became more than a ceremonial event. It became a narrative of human behavior, leadership, and the quiet complexities of navigating life in one of the most visible and structured institutions in the world. The story highlighted that even under immense scrutiny, empathy, discipline, and composure remain crucial tools for maintaining harmony. As the day drew to a close, the palace settled into an air of quiet accomplishment. The ceremonial events had been completed successfully, traditions had been upheld, and dignity had been preserved for all involved. Yet the memory of the incident lingered in subtle ways. Guards continued their duties with an added awareness of human unpredictability. Staff approached their tasks with renewed attention to detail, and the Queen and King demonstrated once more the combination of composure, authority, and humanity that defines their public presence. The events of the morning became a lasting reminder that even in environments governed by strict protocol, human emotion and leadership intersect in meaningful, revealing ways. In the broader perspective, the story of Queen Camilla, the royal guard, and King Charles became a reflection on the human side of monarchy. Beyond the grandeur, tradition, and ceremonial precision, there exists a world of personal interaction, emotion, and quick decision-making. Moments like the slap, the guard's reaction, and the king's calm intervention highlight the intricate balance between instinct, professionalism, and leadership. Observers could see that the monarchy, while rooted in centuries-old rituals, is sustained by the human qualities of patience, empathy, discipline, and grace. The incident became more than a brief event. It became a narrative that illustrated the humanity, responsibility, and dignity inherent in royal life. By the end of the day, Buckingham Palace returned to its usual state of quiet grandeur. The staff, guards, and royal family moved through their routines with practiced precision, yet the lessons of the morning remained quietly present. The Queen's quick reaction, the King's measured guidance, and the guards' professionalism all contributed to a story that would be remembered not just for its dramatic moment, but for its subtle insights into leadership, human behavior, and the enduring interplay between personal emotion and public duty. The event had been brief, but its impact, both within the palace and in the perception of the public, would resonate far beyond that single morning, offering a vivid reminder of the humanity behind the